Hello and welcome to Tech Talks with Kinsoft. I'm your host, and I'm really glad you could join us in the space where we stop just, reading the headlines.
And start to actually unpack them.
Exactly. We turn all that complex, sometimes chaotic tech news into usable knowledge for you.
It's great to be here. And honestly, chaotic is probably the perfect word for what we're tackling today.
Absolutely. Today we're doing a bit of a retrospective, looking back at a major event from back in August 2025. We're talking about the massive data breach at the Australian ISP, IINET.
That's right. And I can just hear people asking, why look back at something from August 2025? It's January 2026 now.
Right. Why drag this one up?
Well, it's all about context. This breach is just a textbook example of this modern paradox we see in cybersecurity. You have all these incredibly sophisticated threats. Right?
Sure. AI, state-sponsored actors, all of it.
The works. And yet the actual point of failure here was remarkably, almost painfully simple.
It's that classic chain is only as strong as its weakest link scenario, isn't it?
It really is. We're looking at how the credentials of just one employee opened the door to hundreds of thousands of customer records. It forces us to ask some pretty uncomfortable questions.
About how secure our data actually is.
Right.
Even with these huge telcos.
Exactly.
So our mission today is to peel back the layers on this one. We're not just going to list what was stolen. We're going to look at the anatomy of the breach, the very specific and surprisingly high-risk nature of some of that data.
Especially the modem stuff.
Oh, yeah. We've got some fascinating research on that. And then we'll talk about what this means for Australian businesses and, for you at home right now.
Shall we get into the numbers?
Let's do it. So set the scene for us. It's August 16th, 2025. IINET, which is owned by TPG Telecom, discovers something is very wrong.
Right. They identified an intrusion into their order management system. Now, let's pause there for a second.
Okay.
When people hear order management, they might think of like a list of invoices or a spreadsheet.
Who ordered a router, that kind of thing.
Yeah, but in a telco context, this is the nervous system of the customer relationship. It's the system for NBN connections, for new orders. It holds the who, what, and where of the entire customer base.
So it's not the vault with the credit card keys, but it's the front desk that knows everyone's business.
That's a perfect way to put it. And the scale was, well, substantial. We're not talking a handful of accounts. We're looking at approximately 280,000 active email addresses.
250,000 people's primary communication channel.
Yes, gone.
In one go. And it wasn't just emails.
Yeah.
About 20,000 active landline numbers were leaked. And then there was this other batch, about 10,000 records, that had a trifecta of data. Usernames, street addresses, and phone numbers.
And that trifecta is dangerous. We'll definitely get to why in a moment.
But there was one detail that really stood out, something that feels like a bit more invasive than just a phone number.
You're talking about the modems?
Yeah.
Around 1,700 modem setup passwords were accessed.
That is such a specific and, frankly, unsettling piece of data to lose. Most of us just think of our modem as that blinking box in the corner. But before we dive into the nightmare scenarios for those 1,700 people, the big question, how did they get in? Was this some elite team of hackers, lasers and all that?
I wish it were that cinematic. It would make for a better movie. But the reality is much more mundane. It looks like it was a phishing attack.
Go over phishing, the thing we've been warned about since the 90s.
The very same.
Yeah.
The attackers likely tricked a single employee into giving up their login details. Once they had that one key, that was it. They were in the order management system.
And this wasn't ransomware, right? They weren't locking things up.
No, not at all. This was a quiet extraction.
Which is almost creepier. It's like someone breaking into your house not to trash it, but just to photocopy your diary and leave without you knowing.
That's a great analogy. They got in, grabbed the data, and got out. And because it wasn't loud, like ransomware, the extraction could happen without triggering all the usual chaos.
Now, IINET was quick to say the system contained limited personal information. They really stressed that, no driver's licenses, no passports, no credit cards. That sounds good, right? Or is that just corporate spin?
Legally, it's better than losing passports, for sure. It saves them from certain regulatory headaches. But we have to be so careful with that word limited.
Why is that?
In cybersecurity, limited data is often the building block for total compromise. Just because they didn't get your credit card number doesn't mean they can't cause you financial harm.
Because they can use that limited info to trick you into giving up the rest.
Precisely. It creates the foundation for identity fraud, for social engineering. It's the mosaic effect. One piece of tile isn't a picture, but if I have your email, your address, your phone number, Suddenly, I have a very clear picture of who you are.
Right.
But let's circle back to those modem passwords you mentioned, because that is a risk vector people just don't think about.
Yeah, let's unpack this. 1,700 modem passwords. I feel like most people get their modem from the ISP, plug it in, use the default password on the sticker, and just forget about it. Why is that so dangerous?
Well, if a hacker has your modem password, they potentially control your gateway to the internet. There was a great analysis on this, referencing a specific piece of malware called the Moon.
The Moon. Sounds like a bad sci-fi movie.
It acts like one, too. It targets outdated or compromised routers and turns them into, well, zombies.
Okay, so define zombie for me. What is my router actually doing? It's not eating brains.
No, but it is being remote controlled. Your router still works for you. You can still stream your shows, but it's also working for them. It becomes part of a botnet. There's a cybercriminal proxy service called Faceless.
Faceless. Seriously.
Yes, really. And they use these compromised routers to route illegal traffic.
So my home internet connection could be used to hide the tracks of a criminal gang.
Yes. Criminals need clean IP addresses. If they attack a bank from a known criminal server, they get blocked instantly. But if that traffic looks like it's coming from a nice family home in a suburb somewhere,
Just passes right through.
and if your modem password is out there, you become a node in their network. You might not even notice a slowdown, but your IP address, your digital fingerprint, is effectively laundering cybercrime.
That is terrifying. That completely changes the stakes from someone might read my emails to the police might knock on my door.
Exactly. That's why those 1,700 passwords were such a critical loss. It turns the victims into unwitting accomplices.
And it's not just the hardware risks. We talked about social engineering. When you combine an address, a phone number, and the fact that you're an IINET customer, the scams can get incredibly convincing.
Oh, they really can. And we saw this happen. There were discussions on Reddit right after the breach. One user posted about an SMS they got about NBN planned maintenance.
I remember this. It wasn't a generic Dear Customer text, was it?
No, and that's the danger. The text mentioned their specific suburb. I think it was Carlisle. It had accurate dates. It looked completely legitimate.
And it arrived just days after the breach news broke.
Sit.
Yeah.
So put yourself in their shoes. You know there's been a breach, you're on edge, and then a text comes through that gets your location right, your provider right, and asks you to click a link. Your brain just says, oh, this must be real.
That's the metadata bypassing our natural skepticism.
Exactly. That is why saying it's limited personal information is so misleading. That limited info is the fuel for these high success rate scams.
Speaking of trust, the customer reaction wasn't exactly sympathetic, was it? Checking the community pulse, it felt like there was a lot more frustration there than just this one incident.
It was a tipping point. You have to remember, IINET used to be the darling of the Aussie tech scene. The gamers ISP, great local support.
Right.
But longtime users were already unhappy. There was a lot of anger about them offloading their email services to a third party, the messaging company.
Oh, that's right. People were suddenly being asked to pay for email addresses they'd had for free for 20 years.
Correct. It was a messy migration. And the sentiment was scathing. People were saying, I'm paying this company to keep my data secure, and now it's been leased anyway. There was this strong perception that ever since TPG bought IINET, it's been a strategy of value extraction.
Value extraction. That sounds like corporate speak for squeeze it till it's dry.
It's exactly that. The theory that you buy a beloved brand, keep the name, but you gut the costs on infrastructure, support, and engineering to maximize profit. The feeling was that support was gone, the tech was aging, and security gaps were inevitable.
The hollowed out theory. You keep the paint fresh, but you strip the engine.
That's the perception. And a breach like this, well, it confirms all those fears for people.
Now, IINET did take legal action. They got an interim injunction to stop anyone from publishing the stolen data. That sounds impressive. But does a hacker in Russia care about an Australian court order?
Not in the slightest. An injunction like that, it stops legitimate media from publishing the raw data. It stops a competitor from using it. But the bad actors on the dark web...
They're not checking the court registry before they sell a database.
Exactly. Once that data is exfiltrated, it's out there. You can't litigate it back into the bottle. It's like trying to recall a rumor.
So that brings us to the bigger picture. This wasn't just happening to IINET, right?
No, not at all. We need to zoom out. Around the same time, the UK telco cult was hit by a ransomware gang. And here in Australia, we've seen TPC, Telstra, Tangerine, all of them hit by these kinds of credential-based breaches.
So if all the big players are getting hit, are the hackers just too good? Or are the companies failing at something basic?
I'm going to quote someone here, Rich Atkinson from Airteam, because he put it so bluntly. He said, "These attacks are not new nor particularly sophisticated."
So the industry knows about this stuff.
They absolutely know about phishing and credential harvesting. These aren't some secret zero-day exploits.
So why does it keep happening?
It comes down to architecture. Specifically, a failure to implement zero trust and, robust multi-factor authentication, or MFA, on their internal tools.
Zero trust. We hear that buzzword all the time. What does it actually mean in practice?
Think of old security like a castle.
Yeah.
Big walls, big moat. Once you're inside, you're trusted, you can go anywhere.
And stealing that employee's password was like getting through the main gate.
Exactly. Once they were in, the system said, "Oh, you have a password? Welcome. Look at everything."
Okay. And zero trust.
Zero trust is like a high-security hotel. Just because you're in the lobby doesn't mean you can get into the penthouse. You need a key card for the elevator, a key for the floor, a key for the room. It never stops checking. It assumes the bad guy is already inside.
So even with the password, a zero trust system would have challenged them.
Ideally, yes. It should ask, okay, you have the password, but are you on the usual device? Why are you trying to download 280,000 records at 3 a.m.?
And clearly that didn't happen here.
No. Australian enterprises are failing to build systems that assume credentials will be compromised. They're still just building bigger castle walls.
It's frustrating. We tell everyone to put two-factor on their Facebook account. How is a major telco missing this on a critical internal database?
It often comes down to friction and old systems. That order management system might be 10, 15 years old. Retrofitting modern security onto old tech is hard. It's expensive.
And it slows things down.
It does. So they trade security for speed until the breach happens, and then they realize the cost of not doing it was much, much higher.
So let's pivot to the so what part of this. We've analyzed it. What did we learn and what should people do? Let's start with any businesses listening.
For businesses, the takeaway is an absolute intolerance for single-factor authentication. A single password is just negligence at this point. If you have employees accessing customer data, MFA has to be mandatory. No exceptions.
And there's a second layer too, right?
Yes. Monitoring for data exfiltration.
Define that for us.
We spend so much money stopping people getting in. The firewalls, the antivirus. We forget to watch what's going out. Data exfiltration is the theft. If a system that usually looks at one record at a time suddenly exports a list of 280,000, alarms should be screaming.
It's like a bank teller suddenly walking out with a wheelbarrow full of cash. Even if they have a badge, someone should probably ask a question.
Precisely. Automated tools can spot this. User Dave usually looks at 50 records a day. Today he looked at 50,000. That's an anomaly. Block it.
Okay, now for our listeners.
Yeah.
The everyday users. What's the to-do list?
Number 1, the modem. If you're using the ISP's modem and you've never changed the password on the sticker, do it today, right now.
Don't let your router become a zombie for the faceless gang.
Exactly. Number 2, vigilance on texts.
Yeah.
We saw how good that scam text was. If you get a text about billing or maintenance, do not click the link.
No matter how real it looks.
Go to the website directly. Type it into your browser yourself.
Takes 10 extra seconds. And finally,
Password hygiene, I know we say it all the time, but use a password manager. If you are using the same password for your IINET account that you use for your bank, that's called credential stuffing, hackers take that one password and try it everywhere.
so one breach becomes a breach of your entire life.
It can be. Unique passwords are your only real defense.
It's simple advice, but it works.
It does. And I want to leave our listeners with one final thought. We trust these companies with our entire digital lives. But if a massive telco with all its resources can be opened up by one employee clicking one phishing link, how secure is the vendor you trust with your data?
That is a sobering thought. It really highlights that security isn't something you can just outsource and forget about.
It's an act of responsibility.
Well, on that note, thank you for walking us through all this. It's complex stuff, but understanding how these failures happen is the best way to protect yourself.
Absolutely. Stay curious and stay skeptical.
If this discussion has raised any red flags for you, for your own business's safety, maybe you're wondering if your internal tools have the right MFA, or if you're vulnerable, we strongly suggest you go to
www.kinsoft.com.au. You can discuss your security and your IT needs with people who live and breathe this stuff. Don't wait for the breach to happen.
Thanks for listening to Tech Talks with Kinsoft. We'll catch you next time.